Welcome to the next episode of Hustle and Air. We're your hosts, Nena and
Mimi.
and on today's episode, we're going to be talking about love lockdown. If you're single and dating, you no doubt are facing special challenges during this horrific pandemic. Some would argue that in many ways, COVID-19 has given you a gift. Traditional wooing has made a triumphant return. I'm sure the ladies are excited about this part. So, COVID 19 has solved two of the most challenging aspects of dating, at least temporarily, I would say: sex and money. The pressure of being intimate early on definitely runs through the minds of many women and sometimes men. Spending those funds early, not knowing what someone's intentions may be, how far this is going to go, is it even worth it? You never really know, right? In those first precious moments. So, this pandemic has really shown us that we can take those elements out and just focus on getting to know each other and understanding each other and seeing where this is really going to go. So, Mimi, what's your take on this? What do you think about that whole dynamic that's kind of bubbling right now?
Nana, so much to unpack here. Super excited for this episode. 2020 was supposed to be the year for many of us. Fitness goals, personal goals, professional goals. 2020.
Perfect vision.
Exactly. And COVID-19, this pandemic, novel coronavirus, had to come in and just wreck it for all of us. Just wrecked it. Some people have said, well played, coronavirus, well played. I am not going to get a man in 2020. I'm not going on a dinner date in 2020.
Girl.
Heck, I can't even get a pedicure and a manicure so far in 2020. Am I asking for too much? So when it comes to dating, you're right. There are things that have changed because of the situation that we're in. And I think it's actually been pretty good. It's been great. Like you were saying, it's changed the face of dating. One glaring thing that has clearly changed during this pandemic are in-person dates. So people are no longer able to meet in person. And when we talked in previous episodes, we're saving a lot of money during this pandemic. So people aren't shelling money out for dates during this pandemic, whether it's the man covering the date or the woman covering the date, or whether you go in Dutch. Trust me, I don't know anything about women paying for dates.
Nothing at all.
Or going Dutch for that matter.
The last time I checked, Dutch was only a language.
So who do you think is winning during this pandemic?
I think there's positives on either end, on both ends, right? I think that this is giving men an opportunity to really assess what's important to them from a perspective that maybe they haven't thought of before, because for the most part, or sometimes, they're leading with other parts of their body. And this has given women an opportunity to also take a step back and see, if this person is really into me as a person, mind, body, and spirit, or are these, you know, notches on a belt, so to say, bumps along the road, so to say. So I think it's been great for both sides to kind of do some reflection on the status of dating in Toronto. And we've heard many people say it's it's quite the challenge. It's definitely hard to decipher who's real and who's not, and who's serious and who isn't, who's interested in just situations and who's interested in real relationships. So I think it's very important and, a blessing in disguise that COVID has come along and kind of taken the element of physical desire out of the equation and giving people something else to think about, something else to talk about. You got to talk to people again. Foreign concept.
So things have changed quite a bit. We are no longer able to interact in person. We're having to find new ways to connect, which is so different from that instant gratification point of view that everyday apps like Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, Plenty of Fish, all of those apps created. And, they're still being used for really great ways to connect relationships and marriages and so forth. But we no longer have that pressure of connecting with somebody online, trying to meet up in person, and then figuring out what's going to happen after you meet in person because nobody's meeting in person. So if you're connecting with people online, you're literally forced to go deeper, whether you want to or not. Most people, I imagine, if they're online right now, either are looking for like quarantine connection, keep, themselves entertained just online, not in person, or are actually seriously looking for a relationship because they know that if they're connecting with a person right now, they're not going to meet in person, and the relationship that they'll be developing will be deeper than what people were doing pre-pandemic.
I completely agree with that for sure. I think if people are coming online now, it's because they want to create more real and more long-term relationships because that's all they've got to go on right now. You can't really see each other, and when the lockdown was a lot more severe, right now they're starting to loosen some of those restraints. All you really had was communication. All you really had was speaking to each other. So I think there's been a surgence of people online just wanting to create real connections and create honest connections that can sustain beyond quarantine, beyond lockdown, beyond COVID, which is great. We took for granted going out and meeting people, being able to be so blasé about the connections that we're making because, there's a dime a dozen. I can meet a man tomorrow. So I think COVID has definitely showed us that you might have already walked by your wife or your husband or spoken to your wife or your husband and didn't recognize it because you still have a wandering eye, just because there's so many options out there, right? There's so many different colors and flavors and people and attitudes and personalities to be attracted to or deal with, and you've never really had a feeling of wanting to settle down, or you've never really had a feeling of wanting to settle with one. So I think COVID has definitely brought that to the forefront for sure.
Now, another point that is different is the idea that even if you meet somebody you like, you won't be able to be physically intimate until you're allowed to extend your quarantine bubble.
Ain't that the truth?
You know what? Wouldn't it be funny if hospitals added, did you break quarantine on the checklist? Can you imagine? Because people be like, hey, I'm quarantining by myself and you're quarantining by yourself.
I
So we
I definitely will say I know a few people who are guilty of that.
breaking quarantine?
I'm quarantining alone, you're quarantining alone. Why don't we quarantine together? As long as you're not going into general population, it should be fine, right?
No, ma'am. No,
That's
sir.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
This bubble, all bubbles,
All bubble. The bubble cannot be broken.
cannot be broken.
It needs to stay right on. You need to stay right on in your own bubble.
We're
Until
trying to flatten the curve.
we are. And I think we're doing a pretty good job. But speaking still on, intimacy and finances and money, let's talk about these men. And don't get me wrong, shout out to all the women who are boss ladies who go on dates and don't mind picking up the bill. But I know that this is definitely a sore spot with some of the gentlemen out here who constantly feel like they have to be the ones to take care of the dates, to plan dates, to be involved.
I'm old fashioned, so I agree, you know?
Yeah. Listen, we're definitely on the same wavelength when it comes to that. And you know what? I hate to tag it as old fashioned.
I know.
I like to say, like, just being a gentleman, courting, understanding what it means to show a woman your intentions and how that should have never died. I'm not sure when we lost this along the way. And a lot of other communities still take this part of the courting session or the dating portion quite seriously. I think in a lot of ways, uh, our Black men have lost this along the way because a lot of Black women are in positions of power, are in significant pay grades that can't be matched and
Mm.
will never be matched. And I think there's been some kind of, and I think that's created some kind of push and pull. There's so many Black women who are accomplished. And so this definitely is a big push and pull in our community. So going back to options for men and women, because there is so, and sometimes I like to look at options or I think of options as noise because there's always going to be an option. There's always going to be someone else that you think is going to do better, be better, say better, all of it.
It's never, ever, ever ending. Everybody got options.
Everybody got options. If we continue to go on the notion of, oh my gosh, well, you know what, this girl didn't do this way, or this guy didn't do this way, and so we keep going, we keep looking, we keep striving. We're like, the grass has got to get greener and greener and greener and greener. The grass is going to get so green one day it's going to be burnt,
Scorched.
scorched. You're going to see soil by the time you get to the end. At this point, no grass, no more grass will be growing.
Nothing.
So I think that's another major thing that we need to address. And I think COVID has made people realize too, like, look, I've been kind of doing the dating thing or playing the dating game for so many years with so many different girls or so many different guys. And it's been fun. You know why it's been fun? Because you've been able to get out and still do things and feel love and feel that attention and, you know, be able to have that in-person physical interactions. But now that COVID has kind of put us in a position where we have to look beyond the physical, we have to go beyond the superficial and look at some of the things that are actually important to us. It's very much changed the game. And I think it's been a great eye opener for people who have just kind of been coasting. You know what I mean? They've just kind of been going through life and not really thinking about, and it's not to say that you must be with one person, you must settle down. If you want to be a serial dater, more power to you. Of course, we encourage Black love, we encourage Black relationships, but of course, we encourage all love. But this is a platform talking about our kings and queens, and that's who we want to focus on.
To our kings and queens. Let's build these kingdoms, build these legacies.
Yes, 3 snaps.
So, I guess, you know, you highlighted a couple problems there that this lockdown has allowed us to think about, reconsider, reevaluate, and has also basically eliminated as well that issue of money, who's paying what for when we go where, and that issue of intimacy. I mean, there are certainly ways to get intimate virtually, but that pressure of, oh my gosh, what do we have to do on the first date? Are we going to kiss? Will it go further than that? That type of stress has basically been eliminated because of this lockdown.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like a bit of a return to that young love where you just sat on the phone all night, would fall asleep talking to each other, wake up with the dial tone in your ear.
Oh, I get hearts in my eyes just thinking about it. It's so
Right?
true. It brings me back to that just young butterfly in your stomach love for sure.
Times were simpler.
So much simpler. And you felt like love was just pure, like was just pure, right? And guys put effort into getting your attention, keeping your attention, and making their intentions known. And it was just so beautiful. I always like to say it's just the little things. It's the little things. It's the flowers. It's walking you to the door. It's the opening your car door. You know, it's the kiss on the cheek. It's the little things.
It's the little things. And it's so interesting how real life versus online has really been amplified.
I agree. I agree. It's really, really, really changed the game when it comes to reality versus online. What people want to portray and what they actually are. So those are like, that is a huge roadblock I think people are seeing online is like, are you really who you say you are? Are you doing what you say you're really doing? And how can this be verified? You know, you still have to give your time to somebody in order to find out if, you know, they are who they say they are. Have you ever been in a situation where, and it doesn't have to be online, and it doesn't have to be your own personal story either. It could be a friend, a family member, where you felt like you were seeing someone but not really seeing who they are. Like so many questions still needed to be answered.
A great question. I guess if I'm thinking about my own personal experience, I've actually never been a fan of online.
Mhm.
I'm a real in life, in person for everything. Even when I'm shopping, I actually don't shop online. I know times have changed, obviously. I have to shop online. But I like to connect to what I'm seeing. So if I'm shopping, I want to be able to feel the fabric and assess the quality and see if it will really kind of basically if it brings me joy. And I think it's a similar thing when I'm meeting people, whether it's men or women. It's like that in person experience adds so much. If I meet somebody and we just don't connect in person, I know that right away. Versus online, you could be talking and yeah, keying and all this. And then you meet in person and you're like, oh no, this is just no. Skirt, skirt, back it up, run for cover. Because this is
Run, Sally, run!
so I feel like in person
Yeah.
helps eliminate some of that off chemistry or mismatch in chemistry and aura. So I'm
Mhm.
not and have never been a huge fan of online, which isn't to say that it's not possible. I've heard of very successful relationships that started online and evolved into a long term partnership or marriage. That's just never, ever really been something that,
You've dived into.
yeah.
I can understand that. My perspective is this. Obviously, I'm a avid online shopper. I don't know how you're surviving without it. I mean, what about stores that don't have brick and mortars? What do? You have to still patronize a store even if it doesn't have an actual place to go. By the way, y'all, you you don't know this about Mimi, but she loves herself a good Costco. I think that's what I think that's what's been keeping her grounded during COVID-19. But from an online dating perspective, now I'm like you. I am huge on in-person interaction, and you know, you got to feel somebody out, their aura, their vibe, you know, just the kind of energy that you get from them when you meet them. But like you said, I've seen many situations where people have had successful relationships that have led to, sorry, successful connections that have led to great relationships and subsequently marriage. So I'm definitely open. I'm not closed off to the idea, but it's also not my first to go to, second, third, or fourth, because again, although right now there's a surgence of people that are real and authentic who are probably online, I think I thrive better on just meeting you organically or meeting people organically, whether it be male or female. I agree with you. I think it's easier to solidify whether you really are friends or really can be friends, or if your personalities match when you can meet them first. But it's not to say that, if I were to swipe right on somebody and we walk down the aisle tomorrow, I ain't gonna be mad because we came together online. I'll be like, thank you, Jesus. Okay. You never know where the answer is gonna come from.
You really don't. I completely agree with you. I think in terms of diversifying
Mm-hmm.
that possibility of meeting somebody, it's certainly important.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you're only focused on meeting somebody in person during a pandemic, who you gonna meet? I mean, Costco. You could meet somebody up in Costco. Okay, don't sleep on Costco. It has really turned out to be the real MVP of this pandemic. And I haven't been to Walmart in so long, but because all my favorite stores, Winners, Saks, off the fifth, everything is cool. But I'll tell you, I got the cutest pair of sandals at Walmart the other day because it's literally the only place I can buy something in person that isn't Costco. It was either a pair of Fila slide-ons from Costco or a pair of, cute little yellow sandals from Walmart. I had to go with the sandals from Walmart.
Join us. That's all I got to say. I got 2 words for you. Join us online. I promise you the stores online will bring you whatever you want, wherever you want. Saks on Fifth Avenue is what? Online, sis. Okay? Now,
I might have to look into that.
thinking about just the African and Caribbean communities, of course, we like to really shine light on them and their take on online dating versus in-person dating. I think another thing that Black women and Black men are probably running into if they do go online is the fact that there isn't a lot of us. There isn't a lot of representation online. There isn't a lot of opportunities or places where a great number of us come together looking for the same things. So I think that's probably why a lot of the people in our communities are probably turned off by those apps because they're not really geared or generated to attract us. So I can completely get how wanting to have those in-person interactions and why that is kind of the norm for us is where people who are dating during COVID are having issue because they've taken away the one thing that we typically would use to kind of measure, do we like this person or do we not? And now we're forced to all go online. And although it's set up for everyone, it doesn't always cover everything that you're looking for. So I think that's very important to also point out as well.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
It's made for everyone, but is it for everyone?
That is the question. So thinking about another really interesting topic that's floating around during COVID, which has bubbled up to the surface because of the predicaments that we're in, the good old telephone. So big topic amongst everyone. And I think even I run into situations with this because I have to say I am a telephone person. I'm completely a telephone. You cannot text me for nothing unless it's, hey, I'm in the front. That's what texting was made for. Short and sweet. It wasn't made for us having long paragraph dialogue over and over, day in, day out. That's not what texting was made for. When the hell did that become a thing?
Right?
I'm like,
Call them up. Call me up. Just pick up the phone.
you better call Tyrone. Call him. I cannot believe that some people think that it's in 2020, despite everything that's going on, COVID, murder hornets. I like to say Jumanji. I like to say Jumanji level 5. All the stuff we got going on. You think you're going to text me and that is going to be enough. No, 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 no. You got the wrong girl. You need to go somewhere with that. I'm such a big believer in if you really care, if you're really interested, if you're really locked in, you are going to phone me and find out how I'm doing, find out what I need, fill my love tank. You can't fill someone's love tank over text. I can text 10 people at the same time. That's multitasking right there. But I think it's so interesting that the dynamic has now had to shift back to telephones, had to shift back to calling, because you really need to find ways to connect. And if you don't want to talk on the phone, then of course, there's video calling, there's Zoom, there's all of those things, which I think is even more appropriate at a time like this when you don't have the option of physical touch. So, or you don't have the option of physically meeting up. So at least with the video call, you can still have those aspects of in person. Hashtag together apart.
Yes, we in this together. So there's a couple of things that I want to talk about for what you just said.
Yeah.
Hundo P to the texting.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Like, just pick up the phone. If it takes more than like 5 minutes to convey your point, pick up the phone.
Thank you.
Half the time, I call people. I'm just like, hey, is this a good time? Okay, good. Because it's just going to be easier to sort it out now.
You don't get any complaints from me. I am right there with you on board. Like, let that be a benchmark, Heirs. If it takes more than 5 minutes to convey your message, pick up the phone.
Call them up. So, speaking about video conversations, love FaceTime. I am not one of those people that's like, you better tell me if you're going to FaceTime me. If I'm not available to pick up a FaceTime call, I'll just be like, call you back in a minute. Love FaceTiming, love video calls, love Zoom, WhatsApp. But do you think that a person can develop a strong connection over video calls?
I 100% think you could develop feelings over video call. 100%. I mean, if you take out the physical of someone and you're able to still see them and feel connected, because I don't think love comes from physical. I think it comes from being connected to somebody, right? So I think that's why you'll hear people say that they talked for 7 months and then got married or something, like, or 10, whatever the number is. They talked for a year and then got married, because connectivity comes from within. And the physical part of it is just an addition once you guys actually get into the same room or are able to see each other. So absolutely, I think you can definitely fall for somebody as long as you're having video call. Now, you can't fall for nobody on text message. You by your damn self.
All by yourself.
I don't know you if you're just texting me.
And to be honest, I would question people's grammar over text message. I'm like, is this person really smart? They can't spell. People are like, oops, my bad, autocorrect. Listen, you can't blame autocorrect for everything, okay?
You cannot blame autocorrect for everything. If every other word is autocorrect, I need to figure out what's wrong with you, because now you're relying on a computer to write for you. So that means you can't write for yourself. Which means that all of it is questionable. You know what I mean? Who am I really talking to? That becomes my next question.
Agreed.
What do you think? Do you think that it's possible to fall for someone, video call, sight unseen, physical unseen, so to say? Or at least develop serious feelings for someone, if not fall in love?
I think it is possible, with the caveat that maybe you met once in person already. That would be my caveat. So let's say you have met somebody before and they had to move, or you knew somebody and then you started dating while they were away. Maybe they got a job somewhere or they've gone away to school and you have to develop a relationship. I do believe it's possible, but if you have already met the person, to develop something more. For myself, again, I need to feel that energy. How are we going to connect before I could maybe make the connection? But that isn't to say you can't develop love. I do believe you can absolutely develop love over the phone or over video. I think that absolutely that's possible. What I'm not sure would be just how you are in each other's presence. So I agree with you. I think, relationships on a deeper level can be started anywhere. And I think sometimes meeting in person is just basically the cherry on top, like, oh, awesome. What I saw on video is exactly how you are in person. This is great. And then I'm sure that there's the odd time where you meet in person and the vibe is whack. But I would say that's probably the minority versus the majority of times.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, and when we say like, fall in love or develop very serious feelings for someone, I think we're talking on the basis of like, you guys have been talking for a substantial amount of time, right? At least 6 months, I think 6 months to 8 months or 6 months to 10 months, where, at least from my experience, I think at the 6 month mark, you start to really get to know someone, really get a feel for someone. The feelings start to deepen a little bit. And then that's how things progress. So we're not talking about, love overnight. And shout out to all my people that are, love at first sight or, met and married at the blink of an eye.
To be honest, if I've been talking to somebody for like 6 months, listen, we getting married. Ain't nobody got time to wait. Like, what we waiting for? What you waiting for? We halfway. We got a foot in the grave. We halfway through our lives right now. What else we waiting for? Take me to the altar.
This has completely escalated. This just escalated. 1 foot in the grave? Mimi, which grave you in? Now listen to me, girl. I agree. Some of those points are very valid. I mean, if we are talking for more than 6 months, what are we doing? Like, let's get it cracking. Let's get it going. Like, sir, sir, you want a phone buddy? I'm not the one. You want a pen pal? I'm also not the one. You know what I mean? Like, become a writer, become a historian. Become an author.
Because when you know, you know.
When you know,
When you know, when you know, you know.
that's another big one. Revelation. When you know, and you don't want to waste no. And it's not even about wasting time. It's just because the conviction is so strong. You want to just start life. You want to start building the union that's going to take you into the next steps of your life, right? Like, why wait if you don't have to? When you have a good thing in front of you, what do we usually do? So why is it any different when it comes to a relationship?
Facts. So, speaking of relationships, then, do you think being in quarantine has changed people's perceptions about being alone versus being in a relationship? Do you think, let's say, men who have kind of been dragging their feet, making a commitment, are now kind of like, oh, snap, I'm in this alone, but I don't necessarily have to be in this alone if I level up and make a commitment. And the same thing goes for women too. There are lots of women that are maybe, have been on the fence until they've had to quarantine by themselves. Being alone for 3 months, that'll get people thinking. You've got time to think and process, level up, reevaluate, and grow.
Where do I even begin? Where do I even begin with this? I mean, men who have had anchors on their ankles and just dragging along, I think they are having second and third thoughts for sure. And same with the women. I mean, being self quarantined or isolated for 3 months looks very different when you have companionship. Looks very different when you're not looking to external parties for some attention and some love and some just anything. So I definitely think that this is going to change the perspective of wanting to be alone or wanting to living alone and not grabbing the opportunity to be in a successful relationship or creating a successful relationship with haste like they've done before. I think coming out of this on the other side, a lot of people are going to start to reflect on, okay, if this happens again, and I think we're going to have this happen again, where we will have to self isolate for an extended a period of time, do I want to do this alone? It really ties well into our last episode where we talked about mental health. And I think that's a huge part of adding to your mental health is having someone with you during, somewhat of a scary time, right? It definitely gives a different perspective on how you deal with it and how you feel coming out of it. And I think as Africans and Caribbeans in the diaspora, we've been taught to be able to go forth into the world and do things in a very singular narrative. And this is a time where we've needed to come together. And those of us that are quarantining solo or with very little interaction are rethinking our dynamics and wondering, hey, you know what? Maybe I do need to just take that leap of faith, not be so scared. Give that guy or give that girl a chance. Maybe we can build something great together. I think it's definitely going to change the dating dynamic for sure, and it's really going to put fire underneath both parties, to make a change going forward, to push themselves into the relationship that they want to be in or that they foresee, and really put themselves out there. I think sometimes we don't put ourselves out there enough, and so we're scared. Some of us have been heartbroken, some of us have had bad relationships, some of us have put our trust in men or women who have disappointed us. And so it's been from a very comfortable position that most have decided to be single and for extended periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on solo quarantine? Like, what do you think? Do you think things are going to change? Do you think men have woken up and women are ready to receive the cortege?
I think at the end of this year, early next year, we gonna have quarantine babies and quarantine or post quarantine weddings, because people who have been alone will literally be running to the altar, because being alone is very difficult. And like you said, even just for mental health standpoint, it's a lot easier to share the burden. Being connected is very important. Being connected to people in person is really important. It increases our well-being. There's stats that talk about how hugging somebody for 20 seconds a day raises your endorphins, or sharing a smile with somebody also has a similar effect. Hugging and cuddling at nighttime, decreases stress levels. There are so many benefits to being in a partnership. So yes, I think if a person was single, they would absolutely reevaluate that. I think a lot of people who, going into this pandemic, none of us had any idea the duration. And I think that the fact that we're going to be in a similar situation again, based on what we've been advised by um, our political leaders and, CDC, WHO, this wave is just number one. In the instance that we are back in this situation again, why do it alone? Be partnered up if you can. Geez, have a baby if you can. Then you won't be alone either. But don't do it during quarantine. When they give us that small window to go outdoors again, to be in the outside, do what you gotta do. Get you a boo, get you a baby, get both.
Get you a boo, get you a baby 2021.
Hashtag.
I like that. I can't even lie. That's going to be, I think that's definitely going to be the hashtag for 2021. Ain't nobody trying to do this again by themselves. Everybody is going to be on top of it. Is literally going to become priority on a lot of lists. I can see it now. But for those of our listeners and heirs, of course, drop your comments, crowns, and your experiences as always. We still got to think about the battle of situationships. Now, this is something that has really just bubbled to the surface in probably the last 10 years, where people are just playing the fence, unsure of themselves, just want to kind of have fun, no strings attached. Yes, I do like you. I don't want, you know what I mean? Just the big tug of war, push and pull. Do you think that's going to come to an end? Do you think that's going to continue? Do you think people are going to be a lot more aware of, okay, wait a minute, you're not serious about me. This is looking like it's going to be a situationship. And in the, and if anything were to happen that we do need to quarantine again, You want to be sure about the person that you're putting your time and energy into, and that if this is to happen again, where we do have to self isolate, you have a team player, right? You have a companion, you have somebody on, you have a unit. You're going into this as a unit. So, yeah, what do you think? Do you think the battle of the situationship is going to be happening post COVID?
I mean, if I'm being real, probably. But here's the thing, ain't nobody really got time to mess around.
Not a
I
dang
think one
second.
thing the pandemic has really showed us is what's important and what's not important. And the things that aren't important have taken a back seat because at the end of the day,
Non essential service, okay?
yes, we are focused on what's essential. And the situations where people may have had situationships, may have had like little online situations or in-person situations, how can you really put your focus and attention there when there's so much stuff happening, so much stuff going around? And honestly, at the end of the day, put that energy into something else. We talked about this in previous episodes. This is time to grow and build. So I want to grow and build on something that I know will be fruitful, not something that is going to die or something that's just going.
Girl, speak the truth and shame the devil.
At the end of this pandemic, I want to walk away with as much bounty, as much fruit for the time that I've had. I want to be able to look back and reflect and say, you know what, things have changed, things have been different, but I'm coming out with more than
Mm-hmm.
what I went into this pandemic with.
Mm-hmm.
And that relates to situationships, relationships, any kind of ship. Like that ship has sailed. There is no space on this dock for dead ships.
Listen, you couldn't have summed it up better than anything I would say. This is why we're Capricorns and we really just are kindred spirits, because if the ship is not docking, we don't want nothing to do with it. If it's being held down by some very heavy anchor and is never going to sail, good riddance to bad behavior. I agree. I think people are going to really, both men and women are really going to start to recognize that, okay, you're not ready for growth. I'm meeting you where you are and I'm leaving you where you are because we don't align. We don't have the same vision. We're not going in the same direction. And sometimes that's okay. And you know what? It takes wisdom sometimes to get there, ladies and gentlemen. And I know that as women, sometimes we're nurturers, right? So we want to take care. We want to see you grow. We want to help fertilize the soil. But post COVID, I think a lot of us are not going to have the capacity. If you're not ready to build and be fruitful, like you said, maybe this situationship or this relationship is just not good for us. It's just not going to be healthy. It's just not going to go anywhere. So I think the battle of the situationship is definitely coming to an end. Sorry, heirs, but what we were accepting pre-COVID, I don't think is going to apply post-COVID for sure.
I completely agree with you. And, on the flip side, what do you think has happened to relationships that were in trouble pre-COVID? We've heard of Neo and his wife, Crystal. They were in the process of going through a divorce, and I understand that they are quarantining together. We've heard of Chloe and Tristan. And to be honest, I kind of think that, well, one, the people that were having extra marital relationships or relationships outside of their marriage, that has kind of been messed up by COVID.
Completely, I think for sure. I mean, you can't pick your side piece over your wife and the mother of your children because, yeah, you probably want to see your kids every day, especially when you have to isolate, right? So, going back to your question, I think it's definitely done them great and the many other folks as well that are having to quarantine together, whether it's with a husband or wife that was kind of on the rocks or like a relationship that was kind of on the rocks, because I think it's you find a way to find the good in what's happening right now. And it also brings you back to understanding what's important and what's priority. And at the drop of a dime, your freedom is taken from you, right? And your health can be in danger. And that trumps anything else. That those little things that you were probably bickering about back and forth, that trumps it all. You know what I mean? You get to like recenter and really understand what's important to you and what's important to keep your family together. So that's something else that I think COVID has definitely brought to the forefront is, really taking a step back. COVID doesn't care if you're a millionaire. COVID doesn't care if, you have all the resources in the world to make yourself better. It is very much a blind virus. It's going around and hitting people at any rate, no matter who you are. And I think we've seen a lot of that with a couple of the NBA players getting COVID, a couple of celebrities getting COVID. It's no different than you and I. I feel like this definitely helped a lot of relationships come together. And it might have even helped in situations where, you're not married and you may not have children with that person, but you had a situationship with someone, it may made them realize how much they really love you or really want to be with you, right? So it works in so many different ways, I think, for sure.
I agree. There are some situationships that are now relationships.
I can't. As always, we like to share some Black owned resources no matter what topic we're talking about. So, single men and ladies, check out in the app stores and wherever you get your apps from these two dating sites for the richly melanated. First up is Noir Love, that's Noir Love. And second up is Hello Africa. Both really great apps. One is predominantly Canadian based, and the other one is more worldwide if you're looking for that international bay.
International love.
Tell us if you meet anybody interesting and, always stay connected.
Well, heirs, that's all that we have for you today. Thanks for listening. We are so glad that you were able to share this time with us. Leave us a great review and share. Follow us on Instagram at Hustle and Air. We're also on YouTube and Twitter at Hustle and Air. Our podcast is currently available on Apple, Spotify, and SoundCloud. So, who did that?
We did. It was so good. It flowed.
Totally.
Lots of conversations around love and relationships and COVID.
Have you ever had a long distance relationship?
You know what? I have. Not the most ideal, but it worked. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right?
It's true. I've had one too, and you know what? It is what it is. They work, they don't work.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice. You make that extra effort.
I agree. And I feel like when you're making that extra effort, hearts, hearts,
Hard.
hearts, hearts.
All the way.